สวัสดีครับวันนี้นะครับเดี๋ยวมาทัวร์EastWest Studio นะครับที่ฮอลลีวูดแคลิฟอร์เนียครับผมอันนี้เกรกนะฮะเกรกจะมานำทัวร์ครับ Hey Greg what's up Oh thanks man
Welcome to EastWest, guys. Follow me this way. I'll show you guys the lobby and the kitchen. It's the lobby lounge area. Everyone mingles here. All the design work was done by Philippe Stark. He's an interior designer from France. Our owner hired him to do all this. So all this you see here is him. Over here is the kitchen. Full range kitchen. We have burners in the back, oven, dishwasher, everything. Each studio gets their own fridge, so you can keep all your snacks and all your drinks. House fridge with all the stuff for coffee, everything like that, sauces, condiments. We've got coffee here, drip coffee, espresso machine in the back, any type of coffee or tea beverage you can think of. I've seen people cook food here, like artists have had their private chefs come and cook stuff on the stove. We've really seen it all. We do catering sometimes if we're hosting like events and parties. We host a lot of those here. Our owner and our managers love to see people in the studio. They're very into the community. So
awesome.
We'll go back out this way. I'll show you guys some of the rooms if you guys want to start in Studio 1 in the big room.
Lightroom Studio A นะครับ
So this is Studio 1. This is our biggest room. It was also the first room built here. It opened in 1961. Bill Putnam, founder of Universal Audio, was also the greatest studio architect to ever live. He built this room starting in 1959. Him and Frank Sinatra and Bing Crosby bought the building together. It used to be a grocery store, which is why all the floors in the common areas look kind of like a grocery store. And all of the back doors to all the studios are big freezer doors because they used to have fridges and stuff. And then it was briefly a casino during World War II. People were gambling here, and then it was a brothel for a little bit, which is funny. And that's when they bought the building. So they saw something in it, and they designed this room. In the 60s, Frank Sinatra, Elvis Presley, the Mission Impossible theme song in 1968. Into the 70s, you had Marvin Gaye, The Godfather, all the theme music for that movie was done in here. So this room is really well known for orchestral stuff, big band stuff, classical music, stuff like that. But we also do rock bands and pop and an assortment of other things too. Bob Rock really loves this room. He loves how live the drums are. And we have a Bechstein 9-foot concert grand piano in here. It's our newest piano, also our largest piano. Super beautiful. It sounds really, really just full and flat in a good way, like everything is very clear on it. And there's original Uri speakers up there. Those are the originals that Bill Putnam built back in the late 50s. So it's pretty cool. We still have a lot of stuff around. The walls haven't changed. Floors haven't changed. All the acoustics are exactly as they were.
Can you tell us a little bit about how the wall and the ceiling is?
Yeah, so the ceiling's a drop ceiling actually. There's a space above the ceiling. The ceiling's like about 21 feet tall. I'm not sure if that was exactly how they wanted it to be or if they just kind of went with it, but the walls are the cool part. So those actually used to flip over and they were, carpeted on one side. So it would deaden the room down quite a bit if you really needed that sound. But they decided kind of in like pretty early on that they didn't really use it that much because most of the stuff in here was, big band and orchestra, and they really liked the room sound and the, when they built these rooms, most of the mics they were using were still ribbons. So if you notice during the recordings, it's very bright. So ribbons actually sound really, really good in here. Condensers do as well, but the room was built bright to mitigate the darkness of all the ribbon mics. And at some point they decided that they didn't care for the carpeted sides, so they actually permanently made these walls as they are. So now we don't touch them, we don't flip them over or anything like that. They're just permanent.
On the panels, 48 inputs here, or you got like multiple panels.
We have multiple panels. They only go up to so this panel here goes up to 48. Most of the ones around this room go to 48. And then in the isolation booth there, we have a side panel that was built that goes to 72.
This ISO one?
Yeah.
Can we go check it out real quick?
Yeah. It's a little dark in there, but I think
fine.
So this is the isolation booth. It's very similarly built to United Recording, which was our sister studio. They were both built by Bill Putnam, and the rooms kind of have a similar shape, similar vibe. If you're doing big band stuff, this is a great spot for the drums because it isolates them from the rest of the band. I've seen people do piano in here. You can put a little vocal booth in here. So obviously for now we're kind of using it as storage for some go-go's, but yeah, that's the panel there. So there's another panel behind one of these Hammonds that goes to 48, and then this panel here goes all the way up to,
I see.
yeah, that one goes up to 80 because it mimics the.
Can we check out the
Yeah, we can go out in the
we're
back
talking
here.
about a little bit of the chambers thing?
Yeah, so it's a little messy back here. Apologies. This is an EMT 140 plate. This is Eddie Kramer's. So this is our little loading bay area. People load in and out here. Storage mostly. Our engine room is right there. We keep like all of our tape machines back there, spare speakers, a couple EMT 250s, and the patch bay for our reverbs. This is the back door to Studio 2. We can go in there in a second. This used to be a chamber, so this is the one I was talking about.
Oh, yeah.
This used to be chamber number 1, and at some point we needed more space for stuff. And truthfully, the chambers get used here a fair amount, but rarely do we ever come across the time where we need all of them at once.
I see.
So they turned it into like mostly storage, but we keep a space in the front here in case people want to run amps back here. It's basically an extra ISO booth for Studio 2.
I think they were using that before.
They were using it the
Yeah,
last
people-
week or
yeah.
so for a bass cab, yeah. It can get quite loud though, so make sure all your doors are closed. But yeah, we've got whatever in here, some drums, some speakers. There's a there's a chamber actually right above here. So there's some stairs over there and you can go up. It's a little dark and small up there, but you can access it in case like a mic goes down or something, but we rarely have any issues with those. So yeah, right across this wall and above this ceiling is chamber number 3. That's like our medium length chamber, and it's pretty bright. Yeah. So, if you're looking for a brighter chamber, brighter reverb for something, that's a really good chamber to use.
Do you remember what kind of speakers or mics is setting up there?
It's an old Yuri. It's a similar type to the ones out there. All of the speakers in our chambers are Bill Putnam's designs. So
cool.
they're old Yuri speakers, and it's just 57s.
Oh, awesome.
Just like, yeah, it's not, some people back in the day would choose to use, bigger mics like 44s or stuff like that. But really it's at this point kind of a waste to use those for like a chamber or something. And 57s do the job. Chambers don't really have, too much top end and too much low end anyways. So it's kind of a perfect mic for that. But yeah, we have lines running up there from our engine room where we have our patch bay and all the amplifiers for that stuff. So
that's cool.
You're just hearing someone walk in Studio 2.
Oh, okay.
But we can take a peek in here if you want.
Oh, they're done.
So yeah, so you see how I was talking about the freezer doors? So these were all like meat lockers back in like the 30s and 40s and 50s when it was a grocery store. Come into Studio 2. This is the back door. And this is the live room to Studio 2. They just wrapped a full band session for the last week in here. As you can tell, walking in, it's a lot more dead than Studio 1. But it still has a little bit of decay, and it's got like the perfect amount for rock music. And so for a very long time, this room was like one of the biggest, and still is probably one of the biggest rock rooms in the world.
It still is.
Yeah, I mean, everyone from like the Chili Peppers, Foo Fighters, Muse, REM, Slipknot, Megadeth, like all of the big rock bands love this room. More recently, we've done a lot of the Lady Gaga stuff for the Joker 2 movie in here. Hozier did his full album in here a couple years ago. So just like really amazing work being done in this room. It's the best room in the building, hands down, in my opinion. As you can tell, like the walls are like beautifully crafted wood, mixture of like hard surfaces, soft surfaces. The angle of the walls is just like, it does a thing to the room. There's some old Yuri speakers up there, just like in Studio One. But what's really the best about this room is all the isolation you get with it. Yeah. Studio One has that one big ISO booth and that's it. Right. Here you've got this large isolation booth that actually was not there originally when they built this room. And then about 10 years in, so they finished this room in about 1963. And in about 1973 is when people started asking for isolation. And so they built this. It used to just be a long rectangular room. And a piano our C7, which is right there, Yamaha C7 piano, can fit perfectly through the doors. So you can do piano in there. The Chili Peppers love to put their drum kits in there, which is ironic because you think rock music, you think big room sound, but they were all tight drums, you know, so they had Chad Smith in there most of the time. But, you know, it's great for like if you need to isolate horns, if you're doing like a jazz thing. And we use the upstairs for mostly storage. And then this is a smaller ISO, more like a vocal booth when the Chili Peppers were here in the early 90s, and Rick Rubin had this room for pretty much most of the 90s. Recording all those Chili Peppers records. They wanted a vocal booth so that they could record vocals at the same time as the band. And there's a little outdoor storage space right there on the other side of that wall, and it used to be this whole area, and they just knocked it out for them, and they built the vocal booth basically at the Chili Peppers request, essentially. So that's a cool bit of history of that as well. Yeah, it's a really great room. Yeah, so Studio 2 control room. It's a Neve 8028 console. It's got 40 1073s in it. One of the most iconic consoles.
What's this?
This? Oh, yeah. These are the lights.
Oh, okay.
It's old dimmer. Those are dimmers. Yeah. These is like the old school. Those have been there forever. But yeah, incredible sounding room, incredible console. Pretty much all of our gear is similar across all the rooms. You know, we try to keep it consistent so you can work in all the rooms. And then we run Burl converters in here rather than the HDXs. My favorite part of this room is the wall Fairchild on the back there, right here.
We got one in A too, but
we did, yeah.
We didn't use it though.
But yeah, this is the client's rack gear. It's not ours, but yeah, man, this is a great sounding control room. But yeah, besides all that rock stuff, they were also doing in the 70s, like Stevie Nicks, the Partridge Family, which was a popular TV show at the time. They were doing all the music for that. The Hawaii Five-0 music was all recorded here. Lots of cool stuff. They recorded the vocals for I Will Always Love You in this room, 1992, Whitney Houston, with Dave Reitzes.
Awesome.
Yeah, Studio 2.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Let's move on to next one.
They also just did a session in here today as well, some drums.
Hey guys.
So this is Studio 3. This was built around the same time as Studio 2, and it's got a similar characteristics on the walls with the wood and stuff. But again, it's smaller, a little bit tighter, a little bit more intimate sounding, but I've heard a lot of people get a lot of big drum sounds in here, honestly. The current drummer for Megadeth really likes this room to record drums, so go figure. But yeah, this is where Pet Sounds was done by the Beach Boys. And California Dreamin', Mamas and the Papas. It was definitely a big room during the 60s for like the surf rock, like California rock thing. and the Wrecking Crew, which was a very famous like session band that played on all those records, were in and out of this room for the better part of 20 years. So it's a very iconic room, and again, nothing has been changed inside this room. This is a Steinway and Sons piano. This was actually Frank Sinatra's piano. Yeah. And he brought it from his house in LA when they opened the studio. So that's really cool. It's definitely got a unique character. But yeah, I mean, Studio 3, there's no isolation. So when you're recording multiple people in the room at once, you know, you got to use baffles and gobos like these to kind of mitigate all of that. Or you could just embrace it, whatever you want to do. More Yuri speakers. It's a classic Bill Putnam design. So they're going to tape tomorrow. So they've got the Studer A827 out, 24 track. This is the little controller for it. Yeah, the remote. And yeah, so this room, what's really unique about this room is the console. It's a Trident A range. There's only 4 of them left in the world that are fully functioning and operational. They only made about 15 of them originally. The company was owned by 2 people and they hand built everything. So, not many consoles were built by them at the time. And we still have one of them, and it's a unique console. It's got its own sound, different than a Neve, different than an API, different than SSL, There's a couple cool qualities. The color, people always make, a comment about the color. I always make a comment about the graphic EQs. That's a big, not a lot of consoles have graphic EQs. Most of them are pot. But yeah, again, similar gear in here. We try to keep APIs, Pultex, Langs, LA2A, 1176, pretty common stuff, distressors, DBX. And then for people that are doing vocals or maybe only a few inputs and they want Neves, we also have an A-rack of 1081s. Yep, and we're Burl in here as well. So Studio 2 and Studio 3 are Burls because that's where we get the most band stuff, and people who kind of want a little bit more punch, a little bit more rich character in their sound. So yeah, smaller control room. And yeah, again, these classic dimmers here.
Yeah, it's good.
All right. Yeah, we come out this way. And now we're in the other hallway here, and you can tell each one of these here, these big white structures, is actually a lounge. Each studio gets their own private lounge.
Can we go check out one?
Yeah, let's check one out.
Maybe the one that we have.
This is a private room here.
Oh, yeah.
Studio 4, that's Jeff Ellis's room.
Hey, Frank. Not playing.
So each lounge every lounge comes with the same stuff. So you've got a couch. Some of them have a slightly bigger couch. The unique one about this one is it has this cool egg seat.
This is for 3?
Yeah, this is for 3, yeah. And you get the TV. It has DirecTV, Netflix, everything. We'll set up tables for people to eat, stuff like that. And then I'll show you guys Studio 5, which is on the other side of the building.
Oh, sure.
It's our more modern room. It's Studio 5 has always been there. When this place opened, it was a overdub room. So commercial spots on the radio, and like a radio overdub room. Essentially, it had a 4-track UA610 console in it.
Serious?
Not anymore, no.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's been utilized for different things over the years. It became an office space. And then they were like, you know what? We don't want it to be an office space. Let's rebuild it into a studio. Alan Meyerson was here for a while. People were renting it out as a mix room. And then at some point they were like, let's rebuild it. Let's build a state-of-the-art mix room. So they redid it, and it opened again in 2015. And the first session that was in here was Blonde, Frank Ocean. And they recorded that here for the better part of about 3 months. This is an SSL G Plus 4000, 56 channels. And it's a workhorse. It works really well, and it's great for mixing, obviously. We still run full ultimation and stuff like that, total recall, all that good stuff. Lots of really good equipment in this room. again, LA2A 1176s, DBXs. We've got some cool Chandler stuff in here. The Altec 124 compressor. Some stereo EQs because people do a lot of mixing and mastering in here. Our only tube tech that we own is in here. The reason we keep that in here is because when we're not mixing, we're usually cutting like hip hop or pop vocals, and that's obviously like the compressor that everyone reaches for these days. And yeah, the room is pretty. Everything's different in this room for sure.
Is that chips?
The Sheps?
Yeah.
Which one?
In the rack up there.
Oh, up here? These are the same preamps as we're
okay.
using. Yeah, they're the Neve 31105. So those are the same pre's that are in the 8078 console. Yeah, this is the little ISO booth. I mean, you know, it's not little.
Yeah.
I've seen like quartet done in here. I've seen drums done in here. Acoustic guitars sound really good in here. But as you can see, most of the time we just keep it set up for a vocal because that's usually about like 80% of the sessions we do in this room is just vocal. But this is where our floater Fairchild lives. Okay. So it doesn't get a lot of love, but you know, and we used to keep some tape machines in here, but we've kind of moved those into the back. But yeah, it's a pretty good sounding vocal booth. I think that, you know, for how like oblong it is, like it doesn't actually have that bad of a, you know, like it doesn't have weirdness happening. You know what I mean? I think the acoustic design was done pretty well. But yeah, so that's Studio 5, and we can go out this way. We've kind of just made a loop now. But yeah, we've more or less made a loop at this point. But yeah, I mean, that's EastWest Studios.
Awesome. Let's go to Studio A control room.
Yeah. So this is the control room for Studio 1 that we were in the last couple of days. This is an 80-channel Neve 8078 board. There's only three 8078s that are this big in the world. We have one of them. Ocean Way Nashville has another one, and then I'm totally blanking. Electric Lady in New York has the other one in their A room. The cool part about this board is it was originally obviously 40 channels. And then it had the 32-channel master section on that side. And it was at record 1, and they were mixing Thriller on this console. And they ran out of channels, and Quincy Jones said, hey, I need more channels. So they got a second console, they wired it up together, and that's the history. So they mixed Thriller on this board, which is pretty crazy to think about all that signal going through this console at one point. Yeah, so the outboard gear... Again, similar to all of our other rooms, you start with the, you know, compressors, 1176s, LA2As. Those are all originals. The 1176s are revision H's. And then you've got LA2As, silver-faced, and then some transient designers, some distressors, all of these DBXs, glorious 10 rack of API 550As. And then we've got some Langs. Again, Alan Sides was a big Lang guy. He hoarded these things. You couldn't find them anywhere for a while because they were all here and at United. But yeah, Pultex. This is the Manly Massive Passive EQ. We keep our effects usually next to each other. The H3000, which is awesome. AMS stuff. We have a few of those around the building. DMX and RMX. Another Altec. These are the RS124s, which are like, it's not an original. I'll be honest, it's some guy that cloned them. But yeah, these are the HDXs that we run, another Fairchild, of course. And that's about it. This is the only room that they've replaced the lighting in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but we offer a wide variety of mics and we have different speaker options if people prefer. You know, obviously we keep the NS10s in the rooms as most studios do, but you know, these days most people are not wanting to listen to NS10s.
I do.
Yeah, no, I love listening to them. You know,
too.
Do you guys have any questions about it?
No, actually, I was gonna ask you something, but you already like told us everything.
Cool.
It's perfect.
Happy
actually.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Happy to
Thanks,
do it.
man.
Yeah, of course.
It's been
a pleasure. It's a pleasure
yeah.
having you here.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure having you guys here.
Yeah.